I will be reading the press statement about the status of the Nairobi peace process on behalf of the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is a facilitator of the East African community-led process of the restoration of peace and stability in the Eastern DRC. And he has this morning sent out a report to brief the East African community, the African Union and the SADC Secretariat on his work as mandated by the summit of the EAC. Now, President Kenyatta believes that the time is right for him to prepare this brief in light of the dire and escalating situation in the Eastern DRC and the upcoming consultations on the matter. This status update follows a report presented by the facilitator on the East African-led Nairobi process for restoration of peace and stability in Eastern DRC, delivered to the 24th Ordinary Summit of the East African Community Heads of State on November 30th, 2024. It is intended as a briefing for the upcoming joint summit of the Southern African Development Community, that is SADC, and the East African Community EAC, to be held on February 7th to 8th, 2025 in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, as well as the African Union 37th Ordinary Session to be held this February 2025. The Nairobi peace process, just to give you a slight history, the Nairobi peace process was initiated by the East African community in response to the escalating conflict and security challenges in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in the year 2021-2022. And it represents a critical diplomatic and military effort to peace and stability to the region. This process was formally established during the 22nd Ordinary Summit of the East African Community on the 22nd of July 2022. The summit directed the creation of the intra-Congolese dialogue, which is to be led by His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the former President of the Republic of Kenya, who was appointed then as the facilitator to oversee the process. Now, the Nairobi peace process was structured around two key elements: political dialogue and military intervention. The political aspect focused on engaging all stakeholders, including armed groups, political factions, civil society, and regional partners in an inclusive conversation aimed at resolving the conflict and fostering long-term peace. The military element involved the deployment of the East African Community Regional Force to provide peacekeeping and peace enforcement support, complementing the political dialogue efforts. Now, progress through June 2023 was encouraging. The facilitator, President Kenyatta, conducted extensive diplomatic engagements, meeting with political, civil, military stakeholders across the region. Key initiatives included multiple targeted discussions with armed groups, including the M23, confidence-building measures with various civil rights and women groups, and the organization of several high-level conferences to resolve tensions and identify pathways to peace. These efforts were supported by ICRAF, UN, and MONUSCO, led to a noticeable reduction in hostilities and a return of displaced persons and significant withdrawals by armed groups from strategic areas in North Kivu. However, in June 2023, as the all-important fourth intra-Congolese dialogue conference was set to take place, political attention in the Democratic Republic of Congo shifted toward the upcoming national elections that were to be held that year, that is 2023, in December. The shift resulted in the slowing down of the Nairobi peace process, and unfortunately at the same time, a political impasse resulted in the withdrawal of the Kenya forces from the ICRAF. This suspension disrupted the momentum of the peace process, leading to a slowing down of the peace negotiations and a breakdown in military cooperation, and ultimately a resurgence of fighting in the region. Now, despite efforts to maintain dialogue, including consultations between the facilitator, President Tshisekedi of DRC, and the M23 leadership, the political and security landscape in the DRC became increasingly unstable. Following the December 2023 elections in the DRC, the formation of a new government delayed the resumption of the Nairobi process. While engagements with key stakeholders continued, the lack of political momentum, coupled with renewed hostilities in North Kivu and South Kivu, has significantly undermined the progress made between the year 2022 and 2023. The M23, once subject to a cease agreement, has now regained control over key towns, including Goma, and fighting has once again escalated across the region. The Nairobi peace process, though temporarily sidelined, remains a critical framework for dialogue and conflict resolution in the eastern DRC. The facilitator remains committed to finding pathways to peace in collaboration with the government of DRC, regional partners, and international stakeholders. However, the recent resurgence of hostilities highlights the urgent need for renewed political will, regional cooperation, and sustained support for peace efforts to avoid further deterioration of the security situation in DRC. The facilitator is of the strong opinion and belief that the two processes of Rwanda and Nairobi hold the greatest promise for a resolution and termination of the crisis in the eastern DRC. The two processes are complementary and interdependent. It is only through the close coordination of the bilateral negotiations between Rwanda and DRC and the inter-Congolese dialogue and conferencing that this crisis can be brought to a fruitful conclusion. There is an African solution to this African problem, and it is predicated on bringing both DRC and Rwanda back to the negotiating table, while at the same time ensuring that the internal dynamics of the people and the politics in the eastern DRC are managed and directed to a peace and reconciliation through the intra-Congolese dialogue process. The full report and details, as highlighted, have been submitted to the AU, the ESC, and SADC secretariats. I thank you for your kind attention. That will be all for today.